Hello, everyone. I'm Billy.
And I'm Kamraun. Welcome to the Horse Frog Podcast, home of your two favorite professional digressors and the creators of the Malazan Brotherhood.
Today, we'll be discussing Book 3, Chapter 18 of Memories of Ice, a novel in the Malazan Books of the Fallen. This is part 3 of 40 of our coverage of this. I'm just kidding. It is just part 3 of 4 of our coverage of this chapter.
This podcast series is intended to be a companion to reading or listening to the books set in the Malazan universe. It's not a book review, and it is most definitely not a replacement to reading the books. Both Billy and I know this to be the best fantasy story ever written and want to share our love of the series with you. You got me that time.
We'll be covering the events of the books in a linear fashion, and there will be spoilers for those that have not read the books. We'll try not to spoil anything prior to us covering that portion of the respective book.
A quick warning, today's episode contains adult topics as well as sorceress violence, and thus is not suitable for children. Addendum, for those that dislike heavy inner monologue, consider this your warning.
Our show is listener supported, and if you'd like to support us, we'd really appreciate that. You can do so by visiting our Patreon link on our website at horsefrogproductions.com. Currently, we're posting ad-free episodes on Patreon weekly.
Also, we'd really like to hear from you. Send any feedback or comments to contact@horsefrogproductions.com. All right, Chapter 18, Part 3. Perrin thought to hood with plans. He sat slouched on one of the lower benches in the thrall's council chamber. Before him, the floor had been gutted, revealing an array of dust-caked outrigger canoes. The wrapped corpses that had once filled them had been removed by the Barghast in solemn ceremony, but, to Perrin's senses, the most important artifacts had been left behind. His eyes never left the seafaring canoes, as if they held truths that might prove overwhelming, if only he could glean them. The pain in his stomach rode dwindling echoes. He thought he now understood the source of his illness. He was not a man who welcomed power, but it had been thrust upon him regardless. Nothing so clear or obvious as a sword, such as Dragnapur. Nothing that he could wield, yet power nonetheless. Sensitivity to unseen currents. Knowledge of the interconnectedness that bound all things and everyone to everyone else. Gano as Perrin, who despised authority, had been chosen as an adjudicator, a mitigator of power whose task was to assert a structure. The rules of the game, upon players who resented every challenge to their freedom to do as they pleased. He thought, worse than a Malazan magistrate in Unta, holding fast to the law, whilst being pressured by every influence imaginable, from rival factions to the wishes of the Empress herself. Prod and pull, push and tug, turning even the easiest and most straightforward of decisions into a nightmare. No wonder my body recoils, seeks to reject what had been forced upon me. Can you imagine how this will make you feel knowing that there are ascendants that could perform retaliatory acts against you should you upset them? How could you ever feel safe in this role? It's not like you have some security force assigned to protect you at all times.
I'm kind of making, this is a very large assumption, but I'm assuming that once Perrin understands his role, he's not the first to be in this role, I'm assuming that there comes some type of protection available to them, being able, I think because they can enforce the rules of the deck that, I'm assuming he's able to nullify things or to sense things or control things maybe due to his role as the master of the deck. Perrin is so reluctant to use it, he doesn't even want to try to even do this, even though he's got to do it, or it's going to kill him if he doesn't. But someone in the past who's probably done this, I'm assuming there's some way that's pretty creative has come up with ways to make these people kind of like, oh, okay, like if he can enforce some kind of structure, doesn't that make him some kind of power?
Let me ask you this. Do you think there are any repercussions if any ascendant influenced somebody to take Perrin out?
I don't know. I don't think they can do it just because Perrin's who he is. He's who he is in this series. I think he's safe for some reason. I don't really know why I say this, but I really don't know how to answer that, Kamraun. It's like we know so little about him. I mean, when he thinks about it, he goes to where he wants. That's pretty dangerous. If he can sense the interconnectedness of things, that could prove very useful. I think this can be used in a serious way against the Ascendants, in my mind. That's just me thinking.
I agree with you. I'm not trying to take anything away from the power that's provided to him, but I don't think that there's anything there that's protecting him from repercussions of his choices.
Oh, absolutely not. He's just some fella.
There's not some higher law that's there to hold anybody to account if something should happen to him.
I don't think I can agree with the fact that he is just some guy because of the fact that he's been handled by so many ascendants that there's something to him. There's a pawn, there's Rake, his journeys within the sword, the hound's blood, and the master of the deck to boot. Any one of those to me is the origin story of a superhero. And he's had 3 or 4. It's like, so each one I'm assuming is doing something to him. I don't know what, but I'm really curious. This master of the deck thing, it does make me very curious. I don't know if we're ever going to be satisfied with any answer I give here either.
Okay, well, I mean, I see it a little bit differently, but again, a lot of it's speculation because it's never directly answered.
Yeah. I don't think it is either.
From my perspective, it would be incredibly nerve-wracking because I would be so paranoid that if you upset anybody, that they would influence somebody to come do something against you. There's some really nasty ascendant.
I could see that because especially when you're hanging out with the likes of, think of the crowd he's running with lately, Calor and Brood and Rake. It's a pretty dangerous lot. Yeah. Bellerden, or whoever. I mean, Silver Fox, they're all, world shakers. And it's like, wow. Yeah, you're right. I mean, he's walking with some dangerous company here, and he could get hurt or squashed, I guess is more like, that's the Talk idea, wouldn't it? Talk left because he didn't want to get squashed in the fighting.
Yes, exactly. It's the same thing, yes.
It is. I agree. It's the same thing.
But Talk has no power, like Perrin does, and it's almost like the gods can lobby him.
I think that's kind of what it is more than anything. I don't know if they can do anything directly, but I think that, I think there is going to be a lot of, hey, man, having a shindig over at my place tonight. Why don't you come over and check it out? Hey, want to talk about these plans here for the expansion over here in the West.
Yeah. The lobby business is going to be strong with these ascendants coming to him. The middlemen.
All the guys like Gethal are just going to be crawling out of the woodwork. It's like, oh my gosh. It's like no. 1,000 times no. Get out. It's next.
Perrin was alone in the Thrall's council chamber. The Bridgeburners had found the Gidrath barracks more to their style and were no doubt gambling and drinking themselves blind with the 100 Gidrath who comprised the Thrall's inner guard, whilst the priests of the mass council had retired for the night. And it seemed Trake's mortal sword, the man named Gruntle, had initiated a friendship with Humbrol Tar's daughter, Hitan, in a manner that parents suspected might eventually result in kin ties with the Whiteface clan. The two had made their way into the heart of the Thrall, no doubt in search of somewhere private, much to the disgust of the woman, Stani Manakis. I wish we could have seen Hitan's reaction to Gruntle's transformation into Trake's mortal sword. That's an interesting choice to exclude that scene, because I feel like there was an opportunity for a funny conversation there.
Was it previously? Did she notice him previously? After, for some reason, I thought, like in this same chapter, maybe earlier, we had maybe noted this, that she was kind of eyeballing him. I kind of felt it was due to that.
No, I don't think we've seen them.
We didn't? Okay.
We haven't seen them yet.
Weren't they together at the, before the Kachin Chamal attacked them?
They were. What I'm saying is, ever since Humbrol Tar entered Kapustan, we haven't seen Hitan or Kafal, right?
Yeah. Oh, she's probably, I don't know. She made us be into, I don't know.
Yeah, I just think Gruntle would have had some choice comments for her,
Yeah. Stani's been relatively, she's had some near-death experiences here. So she's kind of a little more chilled out lately.
I don't know. She's still pissed off about this whole whatever is going on between Gruntle and Hitan. She thinks it's disgusting.
Yeah, that's just always going to bother her just because who she is and who he is.
Mm-hmm. Akovian had led his troops back to the barracks near Jelarken's palace to effect repairs and, come the morrow, begin the task of retrieving the refugees hidden in the tunnels beneath the city. The resurrection of Kapustan would likely prove torturous and anguished, and Perrin did not envy the Grey Swords the task. He thought, we, on the other hand, will have moved on. Akovian will need to find, among the survivors, someone with royal blood, no matter how thinned, to set on that stained throne. The city's infrastructure is in ruins. Who will feed the survivors? How long before trade is reestablished with cities like Saltoan and Darujistan? Hood knows the Barghast don't owe the people of Kapustan anything. Peace had come to his stomach, finally. He drew a tentative breath, slowly sighed. Power. His thoughts had a way of slipping into mundane considerations, a means to procrastination, he well knew, and it was a struggle to return to the one issue he would have to deal with sooner or later. He thought, a storm of plans, each one trying to make me into a fulcrum. I need only spread the fingers of one hand and so encompass the entire deck of dragons. A truth I'd rather not recognize. But I feel those damned cards within me, like the barely articulated bones of a vast beast, so vast as to be unrecognizable in its entirety. A skeleton threatening to blow apart, unless I can hold on, and that is the task forced upon me now, to hold it all together. Players in the game, wanting no others. Players outside the game and wanting in. Players to the forefront and ones behind, moving in the shadows. Players who play fair. Players who cheat. Gods, where do I begin to unravel all of this? He thought about Gruntle, mortal sword to the newly ascended Treach. In a way, the Tiger of Summer had always been there, silently padding in Fainur's wake. If the tales were true, the first hero had lost his way long ago, surrendered entirely to the bestial instincts of his soul-taken form. It makes you wonder if he had similar feelings to Buke that drove him to go this route.
I think that's pretty possible. I used to play. There was a really nice. There was two actually Lord of the Rings games. One was tied to the movie. One was not. And I liked the one that was not. It was very RPG-esque for a card game. Anyhow, one of these things that you use as an attack or lures, like the lure of nature. That's exactly what I think of. It's like the lure of nature. They become the beast in a way, and like wow. Especially they've suffered so much pain and they see this world in a different way and just become just drunk with it and don't know how to come back or don't want to come back to. And so I could see how that'd be very possible.
Yeah, man. Just shift into a hippo and then just go own this spot in the river. On. You know?
That's right. Park up with your bloat of hippos. And
He's my bloat of hippos.
Especially if you're diverse. That would be the meanest divers of all, I think. That could be a bad deal.
Savage an entire continent with that thing.
Dude, I think I sent you something through Messenger. It was a hippo charging some lions in a river. Those lions jumped out of that water real quick. It's like, real funny. They couldn't get out of there fast enough. It's like, they know what's what. It's like, whoa. It's pretty funny, dude.
Mm-hmm. Perrin thought, still, the sheer overwhelming coincidence. He had begun to suspect that the Elder Gods had not orchestrated matters to the degree Nightchill had implied, that opportunism and serendipity were as much responsible for the turn of events as anything else. He thought, otherwise, against the Elder Gods, none of us stand a chance, including the crippled god. If it was all planned, then that plan would have had to involve Treach losing his way, thereby becoming a sleeper in the game. His threat to Feanor deftly negated until the moment the first hero was needed. And his death, too, would have had to have been arranged, the timing made precise, so that he would ascend at the right moment.
That is a thought that I kind of passed by, and you just highlighted. I just forgot to check out and say something, too, is that against the Elder Gods, none of us stand a chance, including the crippled god? So is he saying that they could just wipe the board clear and start over if they wanted to?
What do you mean by wipe the board clear?
Just start over. Wipe out whatever. Threats or all of creation and just like, let's just start over. Is this implying that they're the creators?
Think of what Cruel was like at the beginning of Gardens of the Moon. He was forgotten. There was no blood sacrifice happening on consecrated grounds for him anymore, and he had no power. The only thing that brought him back was that assassin getting killed in Cruel's belfry, and some blood was spilled on consecrated ground, and that brought him back. Enough. And then now, he's starting to slowly gain some relevance again. But the fact that he had no followers and really no power, it lends me to believe that you really can't just start over. Because you have to have something.
Yeah, but in that way, it makes me wonder, did he just leave? Because he's technically, his veins are the Warrens. So he's not been gone. You've been swimming in his blood, even when he's been so-called not here. So Krall's never not here.
Yeah, I see what you mean by that. But he's not powerful enough to do that much in the mortal reality, right? Isn't that how it was communicated in Gardens of the Moon?
That is how I felt that it was communicated in Gardens of the Moon, most assuredly. But what Perrin is saying to me is not that. That doesn't sound like that at all to me. Think about it like this. Krall could have just been slumbering. He could have just taken a time out, said, you know what, I'm just done. You know, he can't go anywhere and disappear because he is magic. He is the entirety of magic, of the magic system. Let's just say it like that. He's the lifeblood of the magic system. So he's there. And so the incredible thing here is the realization that there is the veins of Krall and there is a physical representation of Krall. So I just can't wrap my head around that, dude. I'm just kind of like, I'm just all of a sudden just kind of blown away by that.
Even in the prologue of this book, he said that he was kind of on the wane already when they did that ritual to seal Jacuruku when it was burned. So I'm not sure what exactly that means, because obviously 300,000 years have passed and the Warrens are still working.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where that relationship lies between people not worshiping him anymore and him being forgotten and the fact that these Warrens still exist, and what level of power is afforded to him from that, if any.
Right. That's true.
Maybe it was just a sacrifice and it's allowing people to use them, but he doesn't get anything from it. It's probably taking from him more than anything.
Right. I can see that too. Okay. But yeah, that's just that was a statement that's really a hard statement there. Mm-hmm. It's a bold statement. Let's just say that.
Perrin's thoughts continued. And every event that led ultimately to Feanor's extremity, his sudden brutal vulnerability, would have had to have been known to the Elder Gods, down to the last detail. Thus, unless we're all playing out roles that are predetermined and so inevitable, thereby potentially knowable by such beings as elder gods. Unless that, then, what each and every one of us chooses to do or not to do can have profound consequences, not just on our own lives, but on the world's, every realm in existence. We were circling around the idea of fate several episodes ago. Perrin is right here. The amount of planning and execution it would take for someone to have orchestrated this whole thing is on a level that only a mind like that of the Kwisatz Haderach would be capable of acting out.
Agreed.
And I wonder, does Krupp possess that mind?
I want to think so. I'm not saying he did this, but I feel like he's capable for some reason. And I think because I go to the Silver Fox thing, the Silver Fox creation, the dream world that is used by the Elder God to create something that lives, that's an amalgam of three souls that are born into the mortal world. I mean, that's a lot of scheming. Let's just say nicely. So if anyone was capable of it, for some reason, I think it'd be Krupp.
Yeah, his planning is beyond just the Silver Fox scenario because it was saving Darujhistan.
Yes.
All of the threads that had to be handled there at the fate and everything leading up to that had to be handled in such a way that the outcome came out the way it did. It was hinted at that he was the one responsible for that by multiple people.
Yeah, I agree. Because I think you and I have discussed this in previous books and the fact that I believe that Krupp, do we agree that we think he has an eidetic memory / photographic memory?
Probably.
I'm assuming that's one of his many powers. One of the things he does well. We don't know what this guy's capable of, but his handling of the innumerable threads with ease. Yeah, I could see him being the one. He is the one.
Perrin recalled the writings of historians who had asserted precisely that. He thought, the old soldier Duiker, for one, though he's long since fallen out of favor. Any scholar who accepts an imperial robe is immediately suspect, for obvious reasons of compromised integrity and bias. Still in his early days, he was a fierce proponent of individual efficacy. The curse of great minds, arriving young to an idea, surviving the siege that invariably assails it, then, finally, standing guard on the ramparts long after the war is over, weapons dull in leaden hands. Damn, I'm wandering yet again. So, he was to be the fulcrum, a position demanding a sudden burgeoning of his ego, the unassailable belief in his own efficacy. He thought, that's the last thing I'm capable of, alas. Plagued by uncertainty, skepticism, by all the flaws inherent in someone who's chronically without purpose, who undermines every personal goal like a tree gnawing its own roots, if only to prove its grim opinion by toppling. Gods, talk about the wrong choice. A scuffling sound alerted Perrin to the presence of someone else in the chamber. Blinking, he scanned the gloom. A figure was among the canoes, hulking, armored in tarnished coins. Perrin cleared his throat and said, "Paying a last visit?" The Barghast warrior straightened. His face was familiar, but it was a moment before Perrin recognized the young man. He said, "Kafal, isn't it? Brother to Hitan?" Kafal said, "And you are the Malazan captain." Perrin said, "Gano is Perrin." Kafal said, "The one who blesses." Perrin frowned, then said, "No, that title would better fit Akovian, the shield anvil." Kafal shook his head and said, "He but carries burdens. You are the one who blesses." And I think that's an interesting distinction there. Akovian's actions have such a heavy cost to him, while Perrin's seem to have no cost at all. Is that the difference between choosing a role and having one forced on you?
I guess, but remember, Perrin has almost died for not choosing a role, wouldn't you say?
Right, but what I mean by that is, in owning the role, blessing something doesn't really cost him anything.
As far as we know, I don't know. I don't know what it'll cost him. We haven't seen him do it yet. I get where you're coming from.
I think in a couple sentences here, Perrin does ask Kafal about that, and they really don't know, but it's not like what Akovian is having to shoulder by taking people's sorrow. That's how I'm looking at it. You know, it's not a great personal sacrifice to Perrin to bless something.
Sure. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
And Perrin has no interest in the role. And so it's almost like, hey, we kind of want you to take on these responsibilities. So he's, you know what I mean? While Akovian is taking the responsibilities, he is coming to it saying, I want to do this.
Yeah, that's true. Perrin is like, I hate you guys. I hate you guys so bad. He just wants to be left alone. He's very emo. I don't know if he likes anybody.
I understand his reaction to the whole thing.
Sure.
Who would want to get tangled up in this whole miasma of shenanigans that these gods get up to? It's ridiculous.
Well, there are people that aspire to be these gods, so you got to believe there's someone out there dying to be the rule maker for these guys.
Oh, there are people that always want to be the rule makers. They're in HR in every company around the world.
Absolutely. That's worse than being the master of the deck. It's like, oh my gosh. Why did we never think of this? The HR Warren. Oh no. Dude, that's horrifying.
I bet if you drew a Venn diagram of Karens and the HR Warren, there would be a perfect circle.
Oh, dude, have you watched Severance yet?
No. I heard it was good, though.
It's funny and so uncomfortable because of the funniness. It's uncomfortableness is what makes it so funny. Did I tell you the idea behind it? Or did you know the idea behind it?
Yes, where the people have their minds segregated between at work and outside of work.
Yes.
So one persona is permanently at work?
Yes. So the one person at work is having to deal with these. There was a session in the break room, and it's like they don't really torture you, but it's like psychological, and it's very scary. And it's like, imagine that's the Warren of Karen. Is in that mind space that goes on in Severance. That's the Karen Warren, dude. It's like, that's the HR Warren. Sorry, the Karen Warren. Is there a different Karen Warren?
They're sister Warrens linked at the hip.
Is there a Warren Warren?
All right, Billy. Warren of Warren.
I'll say that now. Sorry. Yes.
All right. Perrin said, "Are you suggesting that if anyone is capable of relieving Ikovian's burden, then it's me? I need only bless him?" He thought adjudicator, I'd thought. Obviously more complicated than that. The power to bless, Beru fend. Kafal's eyes glittered in the torchlight. He growled, "Not for me to say. You can't bless someone who denies your right to do so." Perrin said, "Good point. No wonder most priests are miserable." Teeth glimmered in either a grin or something nastier. Perrin thought, "Oh, I think I dislike this notion of blessing. But it makes sense. How else does a master of the deck conclude arbitration? Like an Unton magistrate indeed, only there's something of the religious in this, and that makes me uneasy. Mull on that later, Ganoiz." Perrin said, "I was sitting here thinking every now and then that there's a secret within those decaying canoes." Kafal grunted. Perrin asked, "If I take that as agreement, would I be wrong?" Kafal said, "No." Perrin smiled. He'd learned that Bargas hated saying yes to anything, but an affirmative could be gleaned by guiding them into saying no to the opposite. I really appreciate how Mr. Erikson sprinkles in these little bits of information that help provide more details about the disposition of the various cultures in the books.
I, too, appreciate this. And that was so great.
It really helps differentiate the cultures from each other.
It does.
And you get little things like the spitting in Seven Cities and then this kind of stuff from the Barghast. I just love it.
Yes, I do too.
Perrin asked, "Would you rather I leave?" Kafal said, "No, only cowards hoard secrets. Come closer if you like, and witness at least one of the truths within these ancient craft." This statement, "only cowards hoard secrets," it makes me think of people that hoard recipes. I'm sure everyone knows someone that will refuse to share a family recipe because it's a quote-unquote secret. And you can take this comment in the context of someone who isn't running a restaurant where the recipe is effectively a trade secret, where they're profiting from it.
Right.
But the only reason I can think of people not sharing amazing recipes is because they want to have the clout of making the best whatever that is within their circle of friends or family. And they just don't want to give it out and share it with the world, which is ridiculous because eventually it's probably going to get lost if you don't share it.
Sure.
I'll stop my rant now.
My family and I am not technically really a foodie. I understand. I don't really get it. I don't have anybody in our family that would hold. I take that back. My brother might not give a recipe, but I don't see that. He would give anything. He's a pretty nice guy. This sounds like people like this. Can I say this word on air? Like the soup Nazi from Seinfeld.
He's got a restaurant, so I mean, he obviously wouldn't sell his recipes.
It's true. It's ineffective. You're right. It's his trade secret.
Here's a very specific example. One of my coworkers at Fry's in Houston, he was El Salvadorian, and his mom made pupusas, which are an El Salvadorian food, and they were absolutely delicious.
Yeah.
I asked him, I said, "Hey, would your mom be willing to share this recipe? Because these are so good, we want to be able to make them." She said, "No, she doesn't share that with anybody." And I'm like, what the heck? You know, I mean, that's just one anecdotal
I love that you're still raw from that, and that's like 15 years ago, isn't it?
Dude, it pisses me off because I'm the type of person that if I don't really invent recipes, but all the like barbecue stuff that I've learned,
Sure.
I have a little cookbook. I'll give it to anybody. I got it from various sources and everything, but if people like it, I'll share it for everybody because to me, if you have a good recipe, you should be sharing it to people because food is something that really connects cultures. And if you have good recipes out there for every culture that people can cook, then it benefits everybody because it's a door into learning about other cultures.
Sure, I guess. I'm still bummed we don't have the food from the Jetsons, man. I want a pill where my meal is there. It's all the great nutrition and all that stuff. It's like, okay, we're done. Awesome, man. I feel great. That was fantastic.
Part of the joy is actually going through cooking it. I don't like cleaning up, but I don't mind cooking. I actually enjoy it.
Sure. And eating for me is never, I don't really care. I just want to get it done. It's a chore. Eating is a chore for me.
I wish I had that problem. Perrin said, "Thank you," slowly pushing himself upright. He collected a lantern and strode to the edge of the pit, then climbed down to stand on the moldy earth beside Kafal. Kafal's right hand was resting on a carved prow. Perrin studied it, then said, "Battle scenes, on the sea." Kafal rumbled, "Not the secret I would show you." The carvers possessed great skill. They hid the joins, and even the passing of centuries has done little to reveal their subterfuge. See how this canoe looks to have been carved of a single tree? It was, but nonetheless the craft was constructed in pieces. Can you discern that, Genoa's Perrin? Perrin crouched close. After a while he said, "Barely, but only because some of the pieces have warped away from the joins. These panels with the battle scenes, for example." Kafal said, "Aye, those ones." Now witness the secret. He drew a wide-bladed hunting knife. He worked the point and edge between the carved panel and its underlying contact. Twisted. The battle scene gunwale sprang free at the prow end. Within, a long hollow was visible. Something gleamed dull within it. Returning the knife to his belt, Kafal reached into the cavity and withdrew the object. A sword, its water-edged blade narrow, single-edged, and like liquid in the play of torchlight. The weapon was overlong, tip flaring at the last handspan. A small diamond-shaped hilt of black iron protected the sinew-wrapped grip. The sword was unmarked by its centuries, unoiled and unsheathed. Perrin said, "There is sorcery within that." Kafal said no, and raised the weapon, closing both hands in an odd finger-locking grasp around the grip. He said, "In our people's youth, patience and skill were wedded in perfect union. The blades we made were without equal then, and remain so now." Perrin said, "Forgive me, Kafal, but the hook blades and spears I've seen among your warriors hardly evince singular skill." Kafal bared his teeth and said, "No need to forgive. Indeed, you tread too kindly with your words. The weapons our smiths forge these days are poorly made. We have lost the ancient knowledge." Perrin said, "I can't imagine a wholly mundane sword to survive unscathed such neglect, Kafal. Are you sure it has not been imbued with?" Kafal said, "I am. The blend of metals defies time's assault. Among them, metals that have yet to be rediscovered and now, with sorcery so prevalent, may never be." He held the sword out to Perrin and said, "It looks unbalanced, yes? Top-heavy. Here." Perrin accepted the weapon. It was as light as a dagger. He muttered, "Impossible. It must break." Kafal interrupted, "Not easily, Captain. The flex seems stiff, yes? Thus you conclude it is brittle, but it is not. Examine the edge. There are no nicks, yet this particular sword has seen battle many, many times. The edge remains true and sharp. This sword does not need mothering." What an impressive piece of technology. I wonder how the skills to craft this were lost to the tribes. Was it a matter of a lack of materials or lack of people's interest in becoming apprentices and picking up the skills that are required to create them? And I guess it could also have been a singularly skilled craftsman that was lost on the voyage at sea. No matter how the knowledge was lost, it was a great loss for the tribes.
It is. A big piece for me is, I guess, what happens with, or would be an assumption, is that with magic, it's easier to replicate this. So when they started to discover, because they're obviously advanced enough, but when they discovered the magic side of things, found out we could do it easier, it's just like manufacturing. Cheaper. Yeah, you can make a piece of junk last forever with sorcery. So it'd be a great win for the sorcerer's world, but by doing so, by going that lazier route, I think in a certain aspect, you lose the technology and all that stuff and all the knowledge necessary for the mundane side of things to make things that are almost magical in their nature due to their timelessness.
Here's the problem. Not everybody has access to magic.
That's true, but they do. the Barghast do.
Yeah, the gods have just woken up. They had the shoulder men that were interacting with the spirits and stuff. There was a little bit, yeah.
There's tribal magic, so I'm assuming they could do some imbuing. Think about that attack that they did on the Kachin Shamal.
Yeah, the smoke or the mist or whatever.
Yeah. So there's something there. Because to me, what this sounds like in a weird way, it's like Kafal himself has admitted a degradation has occurred. It's a loss. The tribe became, it's like they landed on sea. They lost a lot of knowledge. But if the sea would challenge you to constantly work on things and to be good. So when you get to land, things got a little more lax, maybe. Because he seems to see their situation as a degradation. Kafal does to me.
Yeah. I see some of this in our culture as well. Not specifically American culture, but my wife was showing me something the other day. It was this church that had these really intricate stone arches that were carved into a dome. I think it was in England. This cryptography guy recognized it as a cipher and he decoded it, and it was actually musical notes. They converted it through the cipher that he solved into a musical piece that people can play now. The point I'm making is you don't see a lot of stonemasons capable of doing that type of work anymore.
No.
It's a lot like the manufacturing capacity in the United States. We lost a lot of that when it went overseas.
Yeah.
So to get that skill back, it's going to take a long time if we ever get it back to where it was.
Yes, it is.
I'm sure we can if the desire is there, but some of this really masterful old stuff, like who knows, like, building the pyramids and stuff like that.
Old world stuff. The old world stuff.
Olden times.
We've talked about this in previous episodes. We look down our nose on these primitive peoples a lot of times and think that, we know so much more because we got a phone. A cell phone in our hand, a computer in our hand, we can watch videos and stuff and make TikToks and whatnot. And it's like, that's just a gimmick, man. That's just a gadget. That's a brain wiper. It's no good for us. People don't get that. These older societies, people rag on these people thinking they were just dumb because they were an oral culture. It's like, are you kidding me? The oral cultures had to know more than we do. We can't remember anything without our cell phone anymore. We've talked about that too.
Yeah, the cognitive bias.
So, yes, so it's wild, man. So, I don't think that we're any better. I think we're clever. But I don't think we're necessarily smarter than, say, think about that. I think those old philosophers, 500 BC, Plato and those fellows, man. Those guys were some brainiacs, man. We still can't even think like that, I don't think. We have a few people here and there that pop up like that, but not really. It's just clever.
Yeah, that was an interesting point when Lex Friedman was interviewing Jeff Bezos. They were talking about trying to have a larger civilization by spreading to the stars. And Jeff Bezos made the point that if you have a larger population, you have a higher percentage chance of those 1 in a billion type minds that truly move humanity forward. They have a higher chance of appearing because you have a greater number of people.
Yeah, I can see that being the case. Yeah, it makes sense.
All right, moving along. Handing the weapon back, Perrin turned his gaze upon the canoes and asked, "And these crafts possess more of such weapons?" Kafal said, "They do." Perrin asked, "Who will use them? The war chiefs?" Kafal said, "No, children." Perrin said, "Children?" Kafal said, "Carefully selected to begin their training with these swords. Imagine swinging this blade, Captain. Your muscles are tuned to something far heavier. You will either overswing or overcompensate. A hard blow could spring it from your hand. No, the true potential of these swords can only be found in hands that know no other weapon. And much of what those children learn, they must do so by themselves. After all, how can we teach what we do not know? Sometimes it is better to start fresh than coming into something with bad habits learned in another discipline." I like that.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great idea.
That learning process is going to be interesting for those kids where they have to develop their own techniques. It's like developing a whole new martial art, practically.
Absolutely. That'd be wild to have to try and learn to create your own martial art.
Mm-hmm. Perrin asked, "And what will be the purpose of these swords, of those young warriors who will wield them?" Kafal said, "You may find an answer one day, Genoa's Perrin." How do you take that statement? The Malazans may face the Barghast in battle one day?
Maybe, but I don't know. I don't really know how to take that comment.
Yeah, because I guess it could be side by side as allies against something.
Maybe. I don't know. It's more than likely it's kind of like that. If we could get the Barghast to unite, sure. These guys would be formidable. They're pretty formidable as they are, but if you get them united, heck.
Yeah, they are the type that seem to want to go and conquer. Go out and pillage. They're barbarians, right? That's their archetype?
They are. Yeah, they're the barbarian, absolutely. Let's get these guys organized. Let's get them slightly organized, moderately better organized than they are, so that we can have a big group of them, and y'all just go at it, man. You go. Go. Go pillage. We'll be the cleanup crew,
Uh-huh. I was thinking of the Conan statement, "What's good in life?" Are you familiar with this quote?
I'm not, but I can totally see that though, because Conan is just, I don't know what Conan is. He's just a beast. I don't know if that's a pretty nihilistic comment from him.
It is from the first Conan. Okay. Conan, what is best in life?
Oh.
To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentations of their women.
The women. Oh my gosh, I forgot. I'm sorry, I remember the lamentation of the women.
Yeah, of course, said it with an Austrian accent.
Did you like the newer Conan movie? I forget who that was in that movie.
It was Jason Momoa, and had Rose McGowan in it.
Oh, yeah.
I stopped watching it.
I liked it because it was just as brutal as all get out more than anything else.
Perrin was silent for a time, then said, I think I have gleaned another secret. Kefal said, and what is that? Perrin thought, you will dismantle these canoes. Learn the art of making them. He asked, will the land remain your home for much longer, Barghast? Kefal smiled and said, no. Perrin said, thus. Kefal said, thus. Captain, Humbrol Tar would ask something of you. Would you hear his request from him, or may I voice it on his behalf? Perrin said, go ahead. Kefal said, the Barghast would have their gods blessed. Perrin said, what? You don't need me for that. Kefal said, that is true. We ask it nonetheless. Perrin said, well, let me think about it, Kefal. One of my problems is, I don't know how it's done. Do I just walk up to the bones and say, I bless you, or is something more complicated necessary? Kefal's heavy brows rose. He asked, you do not know? Perrin said, no. You might want to call together all your shamans and discuss the matter. Kefal said, aye, we shall need to do just that. When we discover the ritual that is necessary, will you agree to it? Perrin said, I said I'd think about it, Kefal. Kefal asked, why do you hesitate? Perrin thought, because I'm a hood-damn fulcrum, and what I choose to do will change everything.
What I was just going to get at is that with, there was an old Steve Martin bit. He talked about doing, he goes, he does the wild and crazy guy thing. It's just in my country, when we break up with a woman, all you do is you go, I'd break with thee, I'd break with thee, I'd break with thee, and then you throw dog poop on her shoes. And so... So I'm curious if all he's got to do is go, I bless thee, I bless thee, I bless thee, and then sprinkle a little water or something on him. I got no idea.
Perrin said, I intend no offense, but I'm a cautious bastard. Kefal said, a man possessing power must act decisively, Ganoa's Perrin, else it trickle away through his fingers. Perrin said, when I decide to act, Kefal, it will be decisive, if that makes sense. One thing I won't be is precipitous, and if indeed I possess vast power, then be glad for that. Kefal grunted and said, perhaps your caution is wise after all. I shall convey your words to my father. Perrin said, so be it. Kefal said, if you wish solitude now, find somewhere else. My kin are coming to retrieve the remaining weapons. This will be a busy night. Perrin said, all right, I'll go for a walk. Kefal said, be careful, Ganoa's Perrin. Perrin turned and asked, of what? Kefal said, the mass council know who, what you are, and they dislike it. Perrin asked, why? Kefal grinned once more and said, rivals do not sit well with the mass council. They have still not relented in acknowledgement of Karuli, who seeks to join their company. You might well be in a position to claim yourself as their master in all things. Eyes are darting within those masks, Captain. Perrin sighed and said, Hood's breath. Who is Karuli, by the way? Kefal said, Karul's high priest. Perrin said, Karul, the elder god? Kefal said, expect Karuli to seek your blessing, on his god's behalf. Perrin rubbed his brow, suddenly weary beyond belief. He muttered, I've changed my mind, never mind the walk. Kefal asked, what will you do? Perrin said, find a hole and crawl into it, Kefal. Kefal's laugh was harsh, and not quite as sympathetic as Perrin would have liked. Kefal does seem like the type to tell Perrin to suck it up. Sometimes we need someone like that in our life.
Absolutely. Agreed.
We are taken to Boshlain and Korbal Broach's estate. Rhys had managed to find a more suitable bottle from the cellars and had filled the 2 goblets before hastily retreating from the room. His sickly pallor, if anything, even starker on his lined face. Quickben was nonetheless tentative as he took his first sip. After a moment he swallowed, then sighed. Sitting across from him, Boshlain half smiled and said, excellent. Now, having made the effort to penetrate this estate's defenses, you are here with some purpose in mind. Thus, you have my utmost attention. Quickben said, demonic summoning. It's the rarest and most difficult discipline among the necromantic arts. Boshlain responded with a modest shrug. Quickben went on, and the power it draws upon, while from Hood's own warren, is deeply tainted with chaos, striding both sides of that border between those warrens. As an aside, why do you think the summoning of demons is death aspected? Boshlain said, the assertion of absolute control over a life force, Quickben. The threat of annihilation is inherently death aspected. Regarding your observation of the influence of the Warren of Chaos, do go on. Real quick, I like seeing this side of Quick Ben. You can tell he is so interested in the Warrens and how they work by the nature of the questions he posed to Boshlain. This is the type of stuff you see from someone hungry for knowledge and with a strong interest in the topic.
Agreed. And I am fascinated with his comment that demonic summoning is the most rare and most difficult of these arts. So I'm curious to this power levels. And obviously Quick seems very nervous here. And he should be. I mean, he's cautious. Let me say, not nervous, cautious. And rightfully so.
Yeah. I mean, he's in their estate. There's two of them there. They're pretty powerful. Yeah. So I don't blame him.
Oh, no.
This last section here also provided some context that we've been looking for in relation to the nature of the magic that Boshlain wields. I'm getting the feeling that the Warrens are like one big soda machine, and you can kind of mix and match the flavors to some degree to create something special or horrific, depending on your perspective.
You know, and I'm assuming, again, this is something left entirely up to the creativeness of the user. And exactly, it can be quite horrific or quite amazing, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And all shades in between, too, so.
Mm-hmm. The comment about the demonic summoning being rare, I guess it almost seemed fairly common to us because it's been in 2 of the 3 books we've read so far. But I guess maybe we're just seeing exceptional people having access to those.
It's kind of like when you watch superhero movies all the time. You just assume everyone in the world has superpowers. No, a majority of the people do not have these powers. So
right.
To the common man, this is and even to well-informed people in this universe, this is stuff that they have no idea it's probably even going on. So, or that this stuff even exists. So yeah, we're around all the guys that are the big, we're swimming in deep waters with these people. So yeah, we just get so used to it, it's become common to us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Quick Ben said, the Warrens have been poisoned. Boshlain said, there are many flavors to chaotic power. That which assails the Warrens has little to do with the elements of the Warren of Chaos, with which I am involved. And I thought that was interesting, that there are multiple flavors of chaos.
Yeah, and it kind of makes sense if there's other kind of flavors to magic in the way that so it'd be light, dark, or I guess like you say, you can blend it with some of the other things that are available and taint it other ways you want also, I guess.
Kind of goes back to the mix and match type deal.
Yeah, exactly. It makes a lot different world than I think.
Yeah. Quick Ben said, so your access to the Warrens has not been affected. Boshlain said, I did not say that. The infection is an irritant, an unfortunate development that threatens to get worse. Perhaps at some point in the future, I shall find need to retaliate upon whomever is responsible. My companion, Korbal Broach, has communicated to me his own growing concern. He works more directly through Hood's Warren, and thus has felt the greater brunt. Quick Ben glanced over at the crow on the mantelpiece, then said, indeed. Well, returning his gaze to Boshlain, he continued, as to that, I can tell you precisely who is responsible. Boshlain said, and why would you tell us, mage? Unless it be to elicit our help, I am assuming you are opposing this poisoner, and are in search of potential allies. Quick Ben said, allies? Elicit your help? No, sir, you misunderstand me. I offer my information freely. Not only do I expect nothing in return, should you offer, I will respectfully decline. Boshlain said, curious. Is yours a power to rival gods, then? Quick Ben said, I don't recall referring to gods in this conversation, Boshlain. Boshlain said, true enough. However, the entity responsible for poisoning all the Warrens is without doubt a formidable individual. If not a god, then an aspirant. Quick Ben smiled and said, in any case, I don't rival gods. Boshlain said, a wise decision. Quick Ben said, but, sometimes, I beat them at their own game. Boshlain studied Quick Ben, then slowly leaned back. He said, I find myself appreciating your company, Quick Ben. I am not easily entertained, but you have indeed proved a worthy diversion this night, and for that I thank you. Quick Ben said, you're quite welcome. Boshlain said, my companion, Korbal Broach, alas, would like to kill you. Quick Ben said, can't please everyone. Boshlain said, very true. He dislikes being confused, you see, and you have confused him. Quick Ben quietly said, best he remained perched on the mantelpiece. I don't treat hecklers very well. Boshlain raised a brow. The shadow of wings spread suddenly vast to Quick Ben's left, as Korbal Broach dropped from his position and began assembling even as he descended. Quick Ben flung his left arm out, waves of layered sorcery sweeping across the intervening space to strike the necromancer. Half man, half bedraggled crow, Korbal Broach had not completed his assembling into human form. The waves of power had yet to blossom. He was lifted from his feet by the magical impact, caught in the crest of that sorcery. It struck the wall above the fireplace, carrying the oddly winged, semi-human figure with it, then detonated. Painted plaster exploded in a cloud of dust. The wall shook, crumpling inward at the point where Corval Broach hit, punching a hole through to whatever was on the other side. The last sight Quick Ben had of the man was that of his boots, before the roiling dust and twisting tendrils of power obscured the wall. There was the sound of a heavy thump beyond, in what was probably a corridor. Then the patter of plaster on the hearthstone was all that broke the silence. Quick Ben slowly settled back into his chair. I wonder if Corval Broach's shoes flew off due to how hard he was hit there.
That would be my assumption. And it's because it lends a great visual indicator as to how hard he is hit. It just knocked out of his boots, if that's what happened. Because one thing that you said is like the last thing he saw was his boots before the dust. I don't know if that means he was knocked out of his boots or was the bottom of his feet as they're flying away after being punched through a wall or two.
Yeah.
Either way, it's funny. It's a heck of a punch.
Boshlane asked, more wine? And the fact that there's no reaction from him really got me. That was great.
Oh, that's amazing, dude. It's just absolutely amazing.
He's so dry. It's funny.
Absolutely amazing.
Quick Ben said, please, thank you. Apologies for the mess. Boshlane said, think nothing of it. I have never before seen 6, perhaps 7 warrens all unleashed at once, all intricately bound together in such complementary fashion. You, sir, are an artist. Will Corval Broach recover? Quick Ben said, I am your guest, Boshlane. It would be poor form to kill your companion. After all, strictly speaking, I am his guest as well. With the chimney thoroughly compromised, the room was slowly filling with smoke. Boshlane said, true, although I reluctantly point out, he sought to kill you. Quick Ben said, no need for dismay. I was not greatly inconvenienced. Boshlane said, and that is what I find most astonishing. There was no sign of chaotic poison in your sorcery, Quick Ben. You can imagine the plethora of questions I would like to ask. There was a groan from the corridor. Boshlane went on, and I confess that curiosity is a rather obsessive trait of mine, often resulting in regrettable violence to the one being questioned, particularly when he or she is not as forthcoming as I would like. Now, 6, 7 warrens. Quick Ben corrected, 6. Boshlane said, 6 warrens then, all at once. Your claim to finding little inconvenience in the effort strikes me as bravado. Therefore, I conclude that you are, shall we say it bluntly, used up. Quick Ben said, you make it clear that my welcome is at an end, sighing as he set down the goblet. Boshlane said, not necessarily. You need only tell me everything, and we can continue in the civil fashion. Quick Ben said, I'm afraid that won't be possible. Nonetheless, I will inform you that the entity poisoning the warrens is the crippled god. You will have to consider retaliation against him, rather sooner than you might think. Boshlane said, thank you. I'll not deny I'm impressed by your mastery of 6 warrens, Quick Ben. In retrospect, you should have held back on at least half of what you command. The man made to rise. Quick Ben said, but, Boshlane, I did. The divan and the man on it fared little better when struck by the power of a half-dozen bound warrens than had the wall and Corval Broach moments earlier. What? Quick Ben commands 12 warrens?
Wow. 12. Good golly.
Also, what a line that is. That's one of those scenes we simply must have in a show at some point. It's chef's kiss. The fact that he held back half and then just comes out with that line, it's amazing.
Oh, the Boshlane, I did. You need to show just his mouth at that moment and a little quirking of the smile on one corner of his mouth. Like some anime almost. Got that little quirk before you just give the hose to him again. It's just like, but I did. Boshlane. I did. And it's just like, bam. Sucker punched. Pow!
Yeah, it is very anime, that scene. Actually,
yes,
now that you mention it.
Yeah. You can totally see it, dude. Pow! I just knocked right through the wall, okay? I love it, man.
Or the fun times with weapons. A little bit like that South Park episode.
Oh, yeah. Truly one of the best. That's a top 10. That's one of the top 10 episodes. Truly top 10.
Yeah.
Oh.
Quick Ben met Emancipor Reese in the smoky hallway leading to the estate's front doors. The servant had wrapped a cloth around the lower half of his face, his eyes streaming as he squinted at Quick Ben, who said, Your masters require your attention, Emancipor. Reese asked, They're alive? Quick Ben said, Of course, although smoke inhalation. Reese pushed past Quick Ben and barked, What is wrong with all of you? Quick Ben asked, What do you mean? Reese half turned and said, Ain't it obvious? When you swat a wasp to the ground, you then use your heel, right? Otherwise you're liable to get stung. Quick Ben said, Are you encouraging me to kill your masters? Reese said, You're all hood-damned idiots. That's what you are. Clean this up, Mancy. Scrub that down. Bury this in the garden. Pack those trunks. We're leaving in a hurry. It's my curse. No one kills them. You think I like my job? Idiots. You think... The old man was still roaring as Quick Ben retreated outside. Poor Mancy.
Oh my good golly. How many of those episodes of Bury This in the Backyard, Mancy, has he been through?
Yeah. He obviously does not live in a right-to-work state.
No.
I feel like
he does not.
He doesn't really have a choice working for them.
No. And it's a very distasteful job. Even though they want him educated, at the same time, it's like, very troubling characters, all of them.
Yeah. Talamandus awaited Quick Ben on the threshold. He said, "He's right, you know." Quick Ben snapped, "Quiet." In the courtyard beyond, the undead guards had all toppled from the walkway on the wall and lay sprawled on the flagstones, but movement was returning to them. Limbs wavered and twitched. Quick Ben thought, like armored beetles on their backs. "We'd better get out of here, because now I am all used up." So 12 is the maximum capacity of warrens for Quick Ben then. And that's good to know. It's very impressive.
That's one more than 11. Spinal tapping on you. I'm wondering if he can level up during this series. You know, I wonder if he levels up. Can he go up higher?
So that's an interesting question. What I was wondering, actually, when I read this was, is 12 the number of souls that were bound together when they went across Raraku?
Well, that's my assumption, because we had the list. Was that, I don't remember how long the list was, though. I can't remember that. I guess 12 is it.
Oh, actually, we can go back and look that up.
Yeah.
If they listed everybody. I don't know if it was 12. Okay, yeah. I think I'll make a note to go look that up.
Because one of them just seemed like a kind of just a brainiac. So one of them was just the knowledge, but he had 12 warrens that he had access to. Quick Ben is something. Quick Ben is definitely something else.
Oh, yeah. Talamandus said, "I'd almost moved to that wall you destroyed, you know." Quick Ben said, "That would have been very unfortunate. Climb aboard. We're leaving." Talamandus exclaimed, "Finally, some wisdom." Boshlane's eyes opened. Reese looked down on him. Reese said, "We're in the garden, master. I dragged you and Corball out. Doused the fire, too. Got to go open all the windows now." After a moment, Boshlane said, "Very good, Emancipor." When the servant made to move away, he said, "Emancipor." Reese said, "Master?" Boshlane said, "I confess to a certain confusion. Do we possess some chronic flaw, Emancipor?" Reese asked, "Sir?" Boshlane said, "Underestimate..." "Oh, never mind, Emancipor. Be about your tasks, then." Reese said, "Aye, master." Boshlane said, "Oh, and you've earned a bonus for your efforts. What do you wish?" Reese stared down at Boshlane for a dozen heartbeats, then he shook his head and said, "It's all right, master. Part of my job. And I'll be about it now." Boshlane raised his head to watch the old man trudge back into the house. He breathed, "Such a modest man," and looked down the length of his tattered, bruised body, and raggedly sighed. He said, "What's left in my wardrobe, I wonder?" Insofar as he could recall, and given recent events, not much. Dude, it has been a rough streak for them. Running into the Kachane Shamal, then getting stuck in Kapistan during the siege, now this incident with Quick Ben.
I like it that they can take it, still come back for more. The thing in Kapistan, I think they were drawn there. I think they wanted a lot of stuff to work with. What are we looking for? Materials to work with.
Material?
Yeah, materials for these guys, yeah, and by the bushel. So, because they could build an army, apparently. But the Kachane Shamal, the fact, and this incident with Quick Ben, the fact that, like you said, the fact that they can take this, I need to read their short stories to see what else they can, how powerful they are. These guys are tough. I love these guys. They're kind of they're our odd comic relief here in a way. But they always intrigue me. They left me wanting more.
Okay.
You know?
I mean, they're very interesting characters. Yeah. You don't see a lot of necromancers throughout the series. So, yeah. All right, we're going to stop there and we'll finish out the chapter next week. For standout moments, Kefal telling Perrin that he is the one who blesses while Kovian is the one who carries the burdens.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I'm going to be curious to see how Perrin learns how to do this now that he's accepted the role.
He's got to figure out that ritual.
Yeah. It's like the underpants gnomes.
the middle step and then profit.
It's the middle step, dude. What's that middle step? He doesn't know. It's like, damn gummit.
Yes. Right. Kefal showing Perrin the swords hidden within the canoes and informing him of their history and the plans on who will learn to wield them in the future.
That was really cool. I love the fact that these things are so well made that you couldn't hardly see that it looked like it's one piece. And I love that info drop there on the Barghast.
Dude, that would be so hard to take one piece of wood and then cut a piece out of it and then fit it back in without it being visible. Crazy.
The level of skill the ancient Barghast must have had was just outstanding.
Yeah, really impressive. Kefal letting Perrin know that they plan on returning to the sea at some point, which is a pretty big adjustment for them.
That is, and I'm going to go back to those blades real quick. that they found there. The fact that, even we have nothing on our world that can not corrode, do we? We have pretty high level of technology. So it had to exceed our technology, our knowledge in some aspect.
I think there's some stainless steels that are resistant. I don't know if that's forever or just resistant for a period of time.
Yeah, but that's really cool, though. I like that was mundane and yet more impressive almost than magic stuff.
Mm-hmm. Sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
So they say.
Right. Quick Ben's conversation with Boshlane regarding the warrants he uses and their relationship to death and chaos. That was an interesting revelation there.
Yeah, I enjoyed every bit of this. Well, I've mentioned it the past 2 episodes. Because we're covering the same chapter. I've been knowing it's coming. I just love all this stuff with these guys here. It's a total core memory.
Absolutely. And then to cement that core memory is Quick Ben blasting Korbal Broach with 6 warrants simultaneously when he attempted to attack him.
Absolutely amazing, dude. And funny. It's quite funny. Because it's just kind of out of nowhere. It's like, okay, he just wants to kill you. Symbol, bam. Care for a drink? More wine?
Half assembled. So he's like a part bird
yeah.
man.
Yeah. Blasted through the wall, say, more wine?
Yeah, no reaction, no concern for him at all.
Yeah.
Nothing. Yeah, and then after that, Boshlane assuming Quick Ben had used up all of his spells, and then finding out that Quick Ben had 6 more warrens at his disposal.
Ouch. Absolutely amazing. And I just love the mistake made by Boshlane there. It's just because and I love the arrogance. Just thinking that, and part of what it is when I read and I listen at the same time a lot of times, and the guy that does Boshlane, when he does his voice, Lister does this James Mason type thing, and I can totally see James Mason anyhow as this role of Boshlane, and just total dry Englishman, the ultimate dry Englishman. So, but I love how he just totally, it's like, oh man, I have learned that the hard way again, but still, even when he's waking up from all that stuff and dealing with Mancy, cleaning up the stuff, he's still kind of like, He's like, he still doesn't get it. It's like, he's like a psychopath. I guess he doesn't quite understand reactions and people's reactions.
Yeah. That one-liner from Quick Ben that he had only used half of his lines. Oh yeah. My God. It's so good.
It's so good. It needs its own screen time.
One of the best lines.
Absolutely. It
does. Yes. Yeah. And then Mancy crashing out over Quick Ben not killing his masters. I mean, like, he completely lost it. Just like...
Can you imagine?
Full on tantrum.
Can you imagine? Ranting.
It's like me ranting about the recipes, you know?
Well, at least with Mancy, it's like he saw a way out. It's like, I'm finally maybe free. It's like, this guy can do it. He can kill him. It's a crap.
Yeah. That's probably the closest he ever got.
Yes, I think so.
All right, great job tonight, Billy.
Oh, yeah, great episode, man. Really enjoyed that encounter, especially with Korbal Broach and Boshlane. Great stuff.
You got any final thoughts before we drop off here?
No, just a great episode. Like I said, that's core memory. And it's always stood out. It's like a strange that encounter with Ben and the Necromancer. It's kind of a strange little palate cleanser after the death of Wrath Feiner. That was so horrific, and all the brutality of Capistan. And we've had some moments of funny stuff, but it's kind of like, it's this whole moment here was a nice little breather of fresh air, and it lets us really go and gain some new insight and respect on the powers of Quick Ben. They're like, holy crap, dude. I knew you were tough. I didn't know you was that tough. But yeah, That's nice. Now it's time to get back to business.
Yeah, and learning a little bit more about Boshlane was pretty cool, too.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Demonic summoning stuff.
Yeah, very interesting.
All right, thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
We'll see y'all next week.
We thank you all for joining us today.
Again, we really like to thank you for taking the time to be with us, and we've had a really great time talking about the topic today.
If you would like to support our show, you can find us at horsefrogproductions.com, where you can find our Patreon link. Depending on the platform you're listening from, it may also be in the episode description.
And if you'd like to contact us through email, it's at contact@horsefrogproductions.com.